Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Better Luck Tomorrow. It's a film directed by Justin Lin back in the year of 2002. An independent film that I loved back in the day. I mean, this movie came out in my sweet spot of when I was collecting DVDs. I would go to the electronics store every Tuesday when new movies would drop. And I would, a lot of the times, collect and purchase films blindly based on the cover art. Not only just the art on the cover, but if the art had the little wreaths on it that say, like, oh, it wore, like, special jury prize at Cannes or, you know, official film selection at TIFF Film Festival. Like, those, like, the more a movie had, like, independent film, like, festival awards, the more likely I was to blind buy it. And this one had some, and I really enjoyed this movie. It's been forever since I've watched it. It is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. So if you're watching this recently, you could go check it out there. But I love this movie a lot. It's about a group of overachieving Asian American high school students who, because of their not only good grades, but they do a lot of extracurricular activities, part of a lot of groups, you know, just type A students in a lot of ways. Because of that, they're able to get away with scams, which this movie follows this group of friends as their scams increase in severity. Their criminal activity kind of begins to blossom in this movie. It's got a lot of great actors. The main character, Ben, is a nerd, meets a hot girl and falls in love with hot girl, who is Stephanie. So it's got it's got a lot of high school stuff in it, like the romantic puppy love of high school. It's got that. It's got the uncertainty of what you're going to do after high school. And it's got just the politics of high school, the different cliques of high school. But it's told from a perspective of these kids who are, you know, they put in a lot of hard work, especially Ben. You follow him in his kind of daily routines of, you know, learning a different word every day. He goes out onto the basketball court and shoots like 300 baskets or whatever. He's a big fan of basketball. I related to this film a lot because I was very similar in a lot of ways to Ben. I wasn't necessarily a great student in high school, but I did love playing basketball. There were aspects of that, and I did get good grades. But I was never really got into any trouble as a human being, let alone in high school. But I was somebody that loved playing basketball. So when I did watch this movie, I was still playing pickup basketball a lot. And that I related to quite a bit. And just the overall feeling of like being in love with a girl that's like super hot, kind of out of your scope of people. Like she's a popular hot girl and you're just a normal nerd. I was more into art instead of, you know, academics in high school, art and basketball. Literally going to high school, I would have under one arm, I would have my portfolio of artwork that I was working on. And under my other arm, I would have a basketball. And then I had my backpack with all of my stuff in it. That was what I looked like walking down the halls in high school. So I was a different kind of nerd. But in the same area, you know, I was in a different stratosphere. Like I remember looking at girls in high school and just having, you know, just swooning over them because, you know, they were so, like, they were on such a pedestal. It's kind of a crazy time to be alive when it's like you're pretty delusional as a high school kid with like everything going on. You know, the institutionalization of school is potentially coming to an end. You know, you're going to college, which tends to come with it a bunch of freedom that you never had before. The uncertainty of what you want to do with your life, the fact that you're like, you know, you're still going through puberty in a lot of ways. You're still wrestling with the hormones and dealing with not knowing how to handle your emotions as a kid. But anyway, that aspect of the movie I enjoyed, but also the scams that they run are super inventive. I mean, that's the thing with this movie. Because all the characters are smart, they have to kind of do smart things. Like the scams that they run are smart scams. Like from one of the first scams that they were doing is buying a bunch of merchandise at like a Best Buy kind of a store, and then going in and returning, having different people go in and pick those same items up off the shelves and mark them all as purchased, and then go up to a cashier after the new cashier signs in. Like, it's very smart how they run all of their scams. And then it goes into selling cheat sheets in school, and then they started getting a little bit more of a reputation, and they could start kind of like their crew would start being approached by people to do these different jobs. So even then, what I believe this movie is, and I believe the director, Justin Lin, who became the saving grace of the Fast and the Furious franchise, in my belief has made the best Fast and the Furious films. I think he understands the heart of Fast and the Furious more so than a lot of the other directors that have taken part in that franchise. But they have even said in interviews that this is kind of a prequel to the Han character of Fast and the Furious, because that same actor that plays Han in Fast and the Furious plays Han in this movie. That character Han in this movie drives a vintage Mustang, and it's basically the origin story of Han, because you're seeing how he gets into crime. Because he's part of the crew. Even though he's not a main character, he really doesn't even talk much. He's mostly just standing in the background silently smoking a cigarette, looking cool. But he does have some, I mean, he probably has like 3 or 4 lines in the entire movie. But easily could be an origin story, because as what happens in this film is that their scams turn into bigger and bigger crimes, where they finally get approached by a kid whose family watches over the school at night and on the weekends. They're like the security, but they know that there's a new shipment of computer parts coming in, and before they get installed, they're going to be in this room. So it's like this big computer heist, and after the computer heist, then they became known as the crew, kind of like the Fast and the Furious crew becomes known, right? And eventually gets hired to do bigger and bigger jobs. I mean, the progression of Fast and the Furious is a crew of people that started out as mechanics who like to race, and then some of them were doing criminal activity on the side. That's, the first Fast and the Furious film is like Point Break, where the surfer dude comes into this world of, instead of surfers, comes into this world of car enthusiasts, who also on the side do these crimes, and he's undercover. And throughout the franchise of Fast and the Furious, those crimes just escalate into bigger and bigger crimes on an international level. So I love this movie, especially having just finished the entire Fast and the Furious franchise. Watching this, I was like blown away. That is like this character Han. This is basically his origin story, which is awesome, because a lot of those films, there's like 3 films in the Fast and the Furious franchise, which are kind of like spin-off stories of different characters, which I'll talk about tomorrow in my top 5 of that franchise. But so the aspect that it's kind of a prequel to Han, his origin story, even though he's not the main character, you still see like how that criminal activity started for him. Virgil is one of the friends who's kind of like the token fuck up of the friend group, right? Everybody's got that friend who's always just getting into trouble and making mistakes and kind of riding their emotions a little bit too much. And Virgil's that guy. I love Virgil in this movie, man. He has got some of the most intense scenes. Virgil does, because of his emotions, but also just his acting is great. Which let me get his name real quick. Who plays Virgil? Jason Tobin. Shout out to Jason Tobin. And the guy who plays Han is Sung Kang. But yeah, Jason Tobin kills it in this movie. He as they as they become more known and kind of start doing more crimes, of course, you get bigger in that kind of world, it becomes more dangerous, and guns start to do a thing. They get hired by this rich kid to steal from his family, but they want to instead teach him a lesson, and things go wrong. Things go wrong, and throughout this movie, Virgil is definitely the sounding rod to how insane their progression of crimes are, because he gets affected by these things far more, because it's like ups and downs. Like there's this party where a gun comes out, and after that party, there's kind of a fight or whatever, and after that party they're driving away, and it's a great scene. Their crew is in the car, they're in Han's Mustang, and they're driving away, and it may not be Han's Mustang, because it feels like the Derek, who's kind of the leader of the group, was driving. But they're on their way home from this party, and they're feeling like, oh, they're big shit. They're tough gangster guys. And Virgil's in the back seat, and he's like all amped up, all manic about what just happened, how crazy things are, and then it hits him how emotionally is like, well, what happens if I'm going to jail? I beat that guy up, and all of this thing, and it's like the ride of emotion that he goes through in that car ride is amazing. Meanwhile, the driver of the car looks over, and there's actual gangsters driving next to them and kind of taunting him with guns and it's like this scene where nothing's ever really said. It's kind of just floating through, cutting between the different people as they're all processing what's happening. But that scene also, while it shows how big it feels like they've gotten in this criminal world of suburbia, this SoCal, which I kind of enjoy. I want to do a top 5 of the subgenre of Southern California suburban crime, like especially after watching Brick and now watching Better Luck Tomorrow. There's got to be a lot of these kind of movies that take stories that would normally be told in like a New York City, like a neo-noir type of a thing, or just organized crime in general, or generally set in like the East Coast. Having those set in the Southern California landscape I enjoy it quite a bit, especially since I grew up in Southern California, so visually everything that they're doing and going are related. Like it feels like home in a lot of ways. Which is crazy, but that scene's crazy when they're driving home. But yeah, as it happens with every kind of crime movie, when things, just even with like Goodfellas, it's a slippery slope, and people start to crack, and things start to fall apart. And things start to fall apart in this, despite the fact that while they're pulling off these crimes, they're still doing like academic decathlons. So they're showing these like parties that they have that Derek throws. It's like kind of the ringleader. He throws these parties for all the all the smart kids of the school come over to his house, and they play drinking games in order to prep for these academic competitions that they go on. Which just the whole universe of this movie is awesome. Like it's so well understood, all of these things, and they're different than everything. Like it's not how you see smart people usually. It's not how you see, kids from suburbia, it deals with how easily suburban kids get into drugs, how effortless it is, just as easy as it is for kids growing up in a city. Because the main character Ben wakes up on his 17th birthday in this film, face covered in blood because he OD'd on he did too much blow or meth. I don't know what he was doing, possibly meth, to stay up, because he was running out of time management became an issue. Trying to balance being a good student and having that kind of that portion of his identity being this A student who is very active in all these extracurricular activities, that being his passport to do whatever he wants, comes in jeopardy because he's not able to maintain that because of all the crimes and partying. And as they grow, as their group grows in notoriety, they start networking with other groups that they've never heard of. And it's a really cool kind of crime story set in that SoCal suburban setting, but also it's a group of Asian kids. It's not like just a bunch of white dudes doing things, like that movie 21 was a story based on a true life events of these Asian kids from, I believe, MIT that decided to go. They figured out how to count cards in Vegas or whatever, but then they completely whitewashed that story when they made it into a movie. This one's just full of great Asian actors. The cast is amazing. I would love to see. I mean, Justin Lin did the most recent Fast and Furious film, F9. I would love to see at some point him almost bring back some of the characters. I mean, you can't bring Jason Tobin back because, like Han in Tokyo Drift, he doesn't make it. So Han and Jason Tobin can't. Although I think Jason was in Tokyo Drift, not playing the same character. But I don't know. I really enjoyed the movie. There was even a line in this movie after they did the computer heist, when they're like, they're walking through school in slow motion, and the voiceover's like, yeah, after that computer heist, rumors about our crew came fast and furious, which is kind of interesting to be watching a movie that I haven't watched in a long time and never at any point made the connection of this being at all related to Han in the Fast and the Furious films. But because of that new kind of information and just understanding, to then hear the title of that franchise being used, where I guess this was like an intentional when they made. So it could have been that he intended on Han, because he ended up being the director of. Let's see how it's probably his next film after directing. Directing this movie, he did Better Luck Tomorrow, then he did Tokyo Drift in 2006. So that's 4 years later. Like if he knew that he wanted to be part of the Fast and the Furious franchise, it would be interesting. It would be interesting, especially since there is so much related. Or maybe it was just when he took over. I don't know. It's great. I'm sure there's an article out there that explains all of these questions I have in my head. But I would highly recommend checking out Better Luck Tomorrow. It's a great independent film that has that really. There's some amazing scenes, all of which are usually Virgil inspired. Amazing scenes. Like there is this scene where things are really unraveling fast. The crew is in the garage, and they're trying to deal with things that just went drastically sideways, right? I don't want to spoil what happened, but something happened that nobody thought was going to happen, and because of that, they have an extremely large issue to deal with. And while they're trying to deal with this issue and people are kind of traumatized from what just happened, there's a scene where the camera is just circling, I think it's Derek and Virgil, while they're trying to deal with this situation in the garage. And it is powerful. It's a great scene. But yeah, definitely check out Better Luck Tomorrow. It's a great movie. Highly recommend it. And looking forward to, I want to do a top 5 Justin Lin films. So I want to go through his filmography and really parse out which ones of his I enjoy the most. So look forward to that at some point in the future. Better Luck Tomorrow, currently out on Prime. Get yourself some amazing coffee over at stationhousecoffee.com and follow Station House Coffee on Instagram. That's your place for small batch, single origin, premium coffee Brewed in Thetford Center, Vermont, shipped directly to you. Go now to stationhousecoffee.com and order yourself some amazing coffee. And don't forget to follow Station House Coffee on Instagram. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!